Allaccia le cinture, si canta!
Hear it and sing it. The queen of the jazz educator. Oh, allacciate le cinture, si canta, fasten your seatbelt.
Get ready.
Behind the wheel with Judy Niemack. Beautiful, she's just so gorgeous. We are in this beautiful town called Pasadena.
I was born here in Pasadena. I only moved to New York when I was 23, and in the meantime kept going east, ended up in Berlin.
Let's see if we can drive from Pasadena to Berlin
And back.
in 1 hour. When did you feel it was the right moment to write a book as an educator?
Well, back in 1990, I was getting fed up with the fact that there were no practice tracks for singers in the good keys for women. So at that time, I hired my friends Fred Hirsch on piano, Scott Colley on the bass, who now plays with Herbie Hancock, and Dick Weller, and I went into the studio and made a series of recordings, which is now another book on Hal Leonard called Jazz Standards. And these were all in the good keys for women's voice. When I began to teach quite a bit, and I was trying to use educational material like Jamie Aebersold to help singers learn to improvise, I noticed that all of the tracks were in the original key. And I said, I'm gonna make a version for singers where it's in the good key for women's voices. And I recorded that back in 1990. That became something that has lasted up until the present time in various forms. Started as a cassette tape, then became a CD, eventually a book.
Oh, it started as a cassette?
cassette.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now there's still, then Hal Leonard took it and released it as a book with transcribed solos. They transcribed all my scattered solos, and so that was the first method book. And I had offered it to Jamie Aebersold. He didn't want it. He's like, oh, we don't need things. I later ended up teaching with and for Jamie at some of his European camps, and that was great. But
did you ever tell him about that?
I did. I reminded him, and then he put out his own version of things in the female keys. But that was fine. So then I began to work with students on how to improvise, and it seemed they could never just get started. You know, it's just starting and warming up and starting singing and then hearing one scale at a time for a long time so that they could internalize it was the biggest challenge. And
even though I know Judy Niemack because of her book since 2007-8, I have to admit, I was so nervous to ask her, can I be your driver for 20 minutes?
I said, of course. I looked at her videos. I said, this looks like a blast. Let me join her on this crazy journey.
What do you think? Should we give some
We need to do a little duet. We could do a little bit of hear it and sing it, call and response, and imitating each other or having a little scat conversation.
Yeah, let's do it. Hear it and sing it. Volume 1.
Just with the warm-ups and learning about each of the scales that we basically need in improvisation. So the modes of the major scale.
And you wrote a new book,
I have a new one. This one has 2 CDs with all kinds of tracks about blues. So you can learn to sing blues and improvise over it. We have blues in 3/4, 5/4, 4/4, 7/4.
Wow.
Blues with a
show
bridge.
the cover?
And this is called Hear It and Sing and Exploring the Blues. So maybe we'll do. You don't have a CD?
Yes, I do.
Okay, this is a slow blues, and we can just improvise. Sha da 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 da. Ah 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 ah. Sha da da da. Play da da play da ya.
Sha da 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 dwee 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 dee da ba bay. Stood on up a whippy fire, papa tweet it, did it, sha, ya la da 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 da
Saturday. Giovanna, I'm so happy to be here with you. Judy, 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 you are wonderful. Oh, you're so kind to me, kind to me, kind to me, kind to me. I cannot believe I'm in the car with you. Judy, 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 you are the queen. Oh, I like to hear that, I have to confess. But it's a new title for me. Normally they just say, hey Judy, let's do some singing. Let's do some singing in the blues. So pardon me, but I wanna tell something. You are really the queen, and I like to call you Her Majesty. Ooh, I think that's a bit too much for a little young lady from Pasadena. You're not a lady from Pasadena anymore. You are a world-renowned queen. I'm all around the world, that's for sure. And I'm really happy to be back home on Colorado Boulevard today in Pasadena with you. Ooh la 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 with Her Majesty Judy. The first jazz professor in vocals in Germany.
That's
Is that
exactly
right? That was a big honor. No, Sheila Jordan was teaching at City College in New York, and she would ask me to come and substitute for her.
Sheila Jordan.
You know Sheila,
Guys,
right?
Sheila Jordan.
She's now 88 years old and still performing and giving workshops. And she was teaching, but in a very intuitive way, giving immediate feedback to people about their style. And it inspired me to get a little bit deeper into it. I had studied with a jazz saxophonist.
Oh yeah,
After I finished my conservatory, I said, I want to be an improviser. That was great. I have my voice under control, but I want to know how to improvise. So I came back and learned like a saxophone player would.
The singer has to do?
Yeah, right.
Become a saxophone player.
That's it.
And you said he was treating me like a horn player.
That's it. I had to learn all the scales. I had to sing. I wanted to sing Charlie Parker solos, Lester Young solos, Big Spiderbeck, Louis Armstrong, learn their solos and sing along, and then write them down and bring it back to my lesson. And my first teacher was Primolino Puccinelli, and that was in Pasadena.
Okay.
I started singing as a young girl, of course, in the church choir at Pasadena Presbyterian Church. And then I got into all kinds of groups, madrigal, folk groups. I was playing bluegrass guitar, and also in a rock and roll group in high school where I did all the Janis Joplin. Ended up completely losing my voice. And I said, I think maybe I should study singing. So there was this one guy in town, Primolino, and
like
he
classical?
Yeah.
Classical
He
training.
became my teacher for 6 years, and consequently he said, you are a coloratura, you could do opera, you've got to make this your path. So I had two paths of classical and at jazz.
Wow. Oh, okay.
But in those days, in the mid-70s, there was no vocal jazz taught at the university level. So I went to Boston to study opera at New England Conservatory. And I secretly sang jazz, you know. The head of the voice department
Secretly?
said,
Like,
"You'll
we don't
lose your
want
voice."
to tell that you sing jazz.
Exactly. It was like totally forbidden in those days. The head of the vocal department called me into his office, said, "You know, Miss Niemack, I've heard you've been singing with the big band at school, and you've been sitting in with Jackie Byard at these jazz clubs, and you're going to ruin your voice, and you'll have no voice by the time you're 15, right?" So
Yeah.
I proved him wrong many, many times over.
Yes.
And I was living in a garage. It was like a garage made into a little apartment, and practicing all day with my pitch pipe. I didn't even have a piano.
I was reading like biggest people started in a garage. Like Steve Jobs. Here is Judy Niemack, biggest educator in voice in the entire world. First tip, start your
In your
career
garage.
in your garage while doing a garage sale. When you set your mind and believe that your voice is an instrument, then of course everything that comes out of your mouth while singing is different, because you don't think as a singer but you think as an instrument, right?
That's true, and apparently it's a different part of the brain that you're using, of course, because it's more right brain when you're not using words, right?
Yeah.
The verbal side it's a different way of hearing music and of kind of thinking in an abstract way about harmony and melody and all that.
Oh, so how does influence your way to sing first, but also because you're a composer and a lyricist? How much did this influence all this part of your career?
Yes, I love words. I love lyrics. I love to hook into the emotion. That's why we're all singing, really, right? And the beauty of jazz is that you can make the melodies and the lyric presentation so much more personal when you have the harmonic background to make changes that make sense and that add to the meaning of the words. So this is how I approach lyric singing and, of course, lyric writing. The meaning of the words is the prime importance and the part that we must focus on. So I really work hard to avoid people saying, you know, I took a trip on a train. Yeah, that's not the important word. So we work through, how am I going to amplify the meaning of the words? This is more of a challenge teaching in Europe, where English is not the first language.
I know.
So a lot of, in America, it's pretty obvious which words need accents and which need emphasizing. But still, people sometimes disassociate the logic of expressing the words when they're improvising with lyrics.
Yeah.
So improvising with lyrics is one thing, and I love that. And then the other is where you become an instrument, and that is a different state of mind. Then you're like a painter, and you've got all these colors and possibilities within a form, because it's all about variations on a theme, really, right? But you've got to learn how to use the colors that relate to the form you're in. And that's where the intellectual work comes in.
It's so deep, so important.
It's so much fun.
It
It's
is.
being a creator.
Yeah.
And that's where it's different from classical or pop or rock.
Yes. So what brought you to Berlin?
Yes.
I mean, you live there, you teach there, but you also teach in Spain, right?
Exactly. I've been commuting to another country for 13 years, and recently I counted up the number of flights. It was 970.
Did you get some free flights?
Yes, I could always, cash in a few, so that started out in France. Got a list of names from Bob Dorough and Sheila and all those older singers. They gave me all the people they knew. So I flew over to Paris and booked a room for 2 weeks and just called everyone on the list. I'm Judy Niemack. I'm in Paris and I want to sing jazz. Where should I go? 2 weeks I booked myself a gig, Café Saint-Germain. And in those days, you could get 2 weeks singing every night, right?
Oh,
this
wow.
was 1989. So that brought me to Europe, and I eventually got my first CD out on a French label. Eventually produced several of my CDs, and then I had
That's
tours
phenomenal.
and festivals and doing workshops in Holland and France and Germany and Italy, all over. So finally, I fell in love with and decided to move in with a beautiful musician in Belgium. And
here we go, the
then
gossip part. I love it.
I moved over there and started a vocal jazz department in Brussels at the conservatory, and was
So
teaching
you started.
I was the first vocal jazz teacher in the Brussels Conservatory. And then also in Antwerp and The Hague. So I was doing those 3 vocal departments. And then I was invited to come to Berlin to audition because they were starting at the first professorship in the school in East Berlin.
Whoa.
Although it was 6 years after the wall had fallen. But so my then boyfriend and I decided to move to Berlin. Hey, why not, right?
What is your philosophy in teaching, and how do you see the future generation of singers?
I feel that in my lifetime, vocal jazz has exploded. It's incredible, the changes that have happened. I mean, Bobby McFerrin, of course, came on the scene in my lifetime, and all of that a cappella, vocal improv, being like an instrument, has developed so wonderfully, and it's been an amazing wave to be on.
Yeah.
So like I say, Sheila was 2 generations above me, Jay Clayton was 1 generation above me, and they were kind of women who were a product of feminism and the first generations of women helping other women.
Yeah.
So Sheila being willing to give me all her contacts in Europe, and Jay Clayton,
that's so kind of
all
her.
that stuff wasn't happening in the generations before. I met Anita O'Day, who turned her back on me and wouldn't speak to me as soon as I introduced myself and said, "Hi, I love you. I'm a singer too." I was like, oh. That was that generation. They were protecting their territory. They weren't about sharing and helping. We're of another generation, and it's a radical change, that helping people to really understand how to use their vocal instrument. So that's a big part of my teaching philosophy, coming from Primolino Puccinelli and my years as a classical singer, which I then had to transform into singing jazz, because as we know, it's a different technique. But just to have the instrument and the body awareness, and to know how to use it and use it effortlessly and without hurting yourself. This is my first goal with the students. Thank you, Giovanna.
Thanks for the ride. So precious. You're not gonna find this on eBay. I have to show you this too. I'm so lucky having the copy, the queen of jazz educators. Judy Niemack, wonderful, beautiful. Check her website, judyniemack.com, and check the workshops. She's working all over the world. So
Take a class.
if you want to be a good singer.
Huh.